Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about the top 10 players at Champions Paris that you should watch. Now, I specify that because we're going to show you two lists today. First, we're going to talk about the top 10 players that I think we should watch, that you should pay attention to, that I think have something going for them. And then at the end, I'll also share just my top 10 or top 15 list in terms of how I rank these players and who I think are going to be the most valuable players going into Champions Paris. So there's going to be two different lists, but I wanted to do this a little bit differently because this is the toughest list we've ever had to do. This is absolutely the toughest. I mean, I'm already leaving out like 10 extra players that I think deserve to be in the top 10. Like, they could very well be. And probably they might be in some other people's lists. I think a lot of them are very, very close. Maybe depends on what you prioritize. After, thinking about this and having some trouble trying to determine what might be best. Aspas, you can do it. Aspas, you got this. You got this. No, Aspas has got this. Is there even a chance for Aspas? Oh, yes, there is. Dude, Patatek's going crazy. Dude, Patatek is... Okay, Patatek... Oh, Patatek's going actually crazy! I've come to the conclusion that, you know what? There's actually so much else to be excited about with some of these players, like whether it's good stories, etc., that we should watch for. So let's jump right into my top 10 picks that you should watch for, that you should be excited about going into Champions Paris. And then again, at the end, we'll briefly talk about my actual top 15 list. So without further ado, I present to you the top 10 players to watch at VCT Champions Paris. And I was looking for a background for this presentation, and this is about the most French thing I could find. And since we're all going to Paris, it just makes a lot of sense. I'm not actually going to Paris, if that made it sound like that, but those of you who know, if you know, you know. All right, so we've got our good friend Gustave here. He's got his baguette, ready to go out on a stroll in the middle of Paris. But he's here to remind you that this is not an overall top 10 players list. Some of them might be part of my top 10 overall, but these are players that I think we should be paying attention to for whether it's, they're like specialty experts, like certain agents, right? Like a Yoru expert, whatever else it might be, a chamber expert, something like that. Maybe they've got exciting storylines coming into this champion specifically. Or maybe I want to talk about some hidden potential that I think could be unlocked. Like, this could be the tournament where we're all kind of like, wow, okay, that's really what this player can do. So that's really what's there. Of course, if you want to know, watch the end for my overall top 10, but it would be preferred if you watch through it rather than skip through it. But again, I can't choose what you do. So let's move right on to the 10th player that I think we should all be watching out for. It's going to be DH from T1. If you've been following Pacific and if you've been following T1, you know this guy. He's answering the call, coming up as that academy player that was called up in Stage 2. Now, obviously, the backstory here goes a little bit deeper. There was a lot that was going on the T1 side of things. But at the end of the day, what's important is that DH has been putting up numbers. He's been one of the most consistent players on T1. And I always preface this by saying that it's very likely that T1 is kind of playing around him, accommodating DH, right? Making sure he gets comfortable. But hey, just because you're given a setup doesn't mean that everyone can respond to it consistently every single time. He has the second highest assist per round in Pacific. Now, as controllers, usually it is going to be easier, but in fact, the only other person, the person he's just barely behind, is actually Charon. And then after that, there's a little bit of a jump onto other players and other roles. So he's still doing a darn good job, right? Really still putting up the smokes. And yet, what people remember him for are his frags, his aim, his timings, his position, the angles he holds. It all seems so good. And what impressed me the most when I've met him as well on site is that he doesn't really seem fazed by all of this. He seems to be enjoying it. And so I'm kind of excited to see what he can do. Keep your eyes on this guy, especially because I have to imagine that T1 is coming in with just a lot of rejuvenation, kind of going for a new goal, kind of refreshed feeling after not really going all the way to the end in the playoffs of Stage 2. The next player that I want everyone to keep their eyes on, and this probably shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, it's going to be Trexx on Team Liquid. And yes, really, the biggest reason he's on here is because the storyline is just too good, right? He lifts the kickoff trophy in EMEA on the super team, Vitality, right? He seems to be a very integral part of that. They go to Bangkok, it doesn't look so good. And then suddenly trexx is benched. You know, there's a little bit of dirty laundry being aired out amongst the team, and trexx has to take a break. He's given another chance by Team Liquid coming into stage 2. And, you know, in the beginning, it seems fine, right? He's doing his job, nothing too special. But as we move towards the end and as we watch Team Liquid lift that trophy, Team Liquid truly looks like a very well-formed team, and trexx seems to be a very, very crucial part of that as, you know, a kind of pure primary initiator. Averaging a 0.44 assists per round as that pure initiator, currently a 2x trophy lifter here in EMEA for 2025. And if he can make a big run at Champions, what a redemption story it would be. I mean, already the redemption has been there, right? He's come in and said, you know, whether it's him improving across different fronts, you know, or whether it's the whole, you know, trexx wasn't the problem, whatever else it might be, he's here. He's going to the world stage. He's going to the biggest stage as the first seed from EMEA. And I want to see what he can do because trexx was always a very talented player. So now that we see him very well ingrained with Team Liquid on the international stage, when push comes to shove, is he also going to put up some insane numbers, insane rounds that are going to live in our memory to help Team Liquid go one step further? Next up, a little bit of a different take here. It's going to be Woot from Team Heretics. And this one is because I want to know what he's going to do at Champions. You know, as you can read on the side here, there's never really been any doubt about Woot's physical capabilities, right? His mechanical capabilities. His individual skill was always good. He had an amazing debut last year, and he's just looked great throughout. But he has just an absolute drop-off going into the Stage 2 playoffs. And every now and then, we've seen this from Woot. I wouldn't say this big in the past, right? I mean, first of all, Heretics has, you know, gone to multiple international grand finals. So we can't possibly say that, you know, Woot suddenly just randomly disappears in playoffs every time. That's not true. That's not what I'm trying to say. But currently, he's coming in as kind of that secondary duelist now. They're leaning a lot more into the double duelist role. And there seems to be a lot more on and off. And you know, maybe it's just the team. Team Heretics overall had a lot of on and off, kind of up and downs throughout Stage 2, and eventually, of course, kind of barely making their way in thanks to, you know, different results. But my question is going to be, if you are continuing to play that double duelist, Woot, can he consistently be the star player that Heretics needs him to be? Right? Can he be that guy who's going to pop off and put up the highlights every single time? That's what I want to know. And this is the best time for him to prove it to everybody, right? This is absolutely the best time for him to be doing that. So I want to know if he can actually answer that call. Yeah, he also plays the Waylay, which is kind of a big deal for me because I firmly believe Waylay is going to kind of become the next Neon Yoru. We'll see. We'll see if they bring it back out, though. They only kind of showed it once on that corrode, so we'll see if it happens again. Next up, there's a little bit of bias here. I had to give a shout out to HYUNMIN. There were several other players that I wanted to put on this list that I think deserve a lot of attention going into Paris, but I had to give HYUNMIN another shot, another shout out, because DRX didn't look that great in Stage 2. Now, when we say not that great, our standards are pretty high for a team like DRX, so keep that in mind. It's not that they looked garbage, but they just didn't look that great, right? They didn't look convincing, especially as a team. We didn't. There were maps where we're like, oh, they're back. Oh, they figured it out. Oh, they look better. And then other maps were like, oh, what is going on here? And so they were a little bit hard to put a lot of faith in. DRX, another team that didn't make it in on their own accord, right? It relied on the RQ and Talon match in the lower finals. However, HYUNMIN was still very consistent. He's still one of the highest rated players in Pacific Stage 2. And I really, really believe that HYUNMIN will become a big star in Valorant based on what he's shown, like in-game in terms of his mechanics, which I think everyone agrees on is really, really good. But he has this mode that he goes into. Like when we need to win, he clicks and he says, okay, like I'll win. right? But other times he's playing with the team. Other times he doesn't mind if he's not getting the frags. He'll go in. If the team tells him to go in, he'll go in. If the team needs him to create space, he'll go create space. And so in some ways, I kind of see a little bit of jawgemo in HYUNMIN, right? Obviously, much fresher, and a little bit more rough around the edges, perhaps, and things like that. But I really think that now trexx being given a second chance, they're going to have to lean into their strengths at this tournament. And their biggest strength, in my view, is HYUNMIN. They've got a couple others, right? They've got Flashback, mechanically talented. You've got Mako, of course, just a solid rock. But I put this here because I want to see trexx let HYUNMIN fly. I want them to allow him to do what he does best, all right? Listen, the entire year, 23 matches in VCT, right? I haven't counted the other stuff in between seasons. Only 3 matches, and I don't mean maps, like 3 best of series. There's only 3 that HYUNMIN has gone negative. Every other time, he's either had a perfect 0 KD balance or a very positive KD balance. So if you consider trexx's journey overall this year, you've got to give him credit, especially when he's the primary duelist and oftentimes the only duelist amongst all of the crazy meta stuff that's going on. And also, he plays some Waylay, so he gets another plus in my book on that. So keep an eye on him, and they might play some more Waylay, so keep an eye on that as well. Next up, we're kind of going through all the Pacific players right now, but don't worry, it's not that biased. There are other players at the top of the list, but RRQ's xffero, if you watched the finals, if you watched any of playoffs, you know why. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't for xffero. Jemkin, obviously the star player. Crazy guy, amazing IGL. I always give him his flowers. I mean, there's a lot of talented players here. I think Magnet really cleaned up and stepped up coming into stage 2 and especially towards the playoffs. Cushy, he was a little bit under the weather, I believe, during the finals weekend, so that's unfortunate, but he's always reliable, and when he's on top of things, Cushy also a contender for Rookie of the Year in Pacific. But the reason they are here in this seeding, the reason they are here getting all the way to the grand finals is because of xffero. I mean, 6 clutches against Talon in the lower finals, one of them including a 1v4. xffero has turned into the insurance plan for RRQ, and that's great to see because he was that guy before as well. Before for RRQ, before for Boom. Of course, when he, was at Champions Istanbul and he got that 38 kill record at the time at a LAN against Optic. So it's really great to see that he had some shaky ups and downs, sometimes where he would feel a little unsure about his timings and whatnot. Now he seems to take a lot of command, whether it's his lyrics, his timings, he seems to be a very big part of that. He seems to be one of the more vocal members on RRQ as well on that stage. And I would like to see him do the same thing at an international. I did find something very funny. He had 22 clutches in stage 2. That's a crazy amount. But there were 109 scenarios. So, he's oftentimes getting left behind, but he is answering a good chunk of them, a good fifth of them. So it's still pretty good. I mean, especially considering the number of times he has to do it, the percentage is actually quite impressive. So I think when they really need him, he's going to clutch up. But otherwise, he's going to be the one that actually gives RRQ that extra edge against other teams that might have some good prep against them. All right, we're moving on from Pacific. Going on to number 5. NRG's Mada, a rookie on his own right as well. Now, Mada is really just here. Shout out to Wyatt, because watching their games towards the end of the playoffs, Wyatt just couldn't stop fawning over Mada's op, and I don't blame him. Mada's op looks good. He looks good. He's one of those players that just looks so much better once he gets that op. He looks so much more confident. His shots are crispy, and once he has that op, he's that player that opponents need to play around, right? This is a guy where you're like, you don't want to ego peek him. You just say, okay, they got the op. All right, we got to go to the place that Mada's not at. Obviously, this is a very big part of NRG's defense as well, that, their defensive side is known to be one of the best right now, especially in America, but I would say maybe arguably globally as well. And a big part of that is you get the op, you get the Odin on the other side. Where are you going? Where are you going to go against this team? He has a whopping 68 op kills in stage 2. And in two of the matches, he's had 19 op kills. That's incredible. And amongst all that, he has the highest first kills per round. Now, probably a big part of that is because he's holding the op on defense, and they're walking in and he's getting the shot, right? He's finding them on that defensive side. But sometimes that means he might not even get a chance to fight, and he's still able to unlock that potential as the primary duelist. Mada also gets some bonus points for playing that waylay, especially on that corrode, so I'm a big fan of that. But I want to know, does this work globally as well, or is this just because of the competition in Americas perhaps being a bit easier? Because forget everything else, if you can still be one of the best operators, we always talk about the best operators, right? CNET is still remembered as one of the best operators, right? That's something we really hold on to when someone shines in that role. So I think if Mada as a rookie can go to Champions and be one of the best operators and compete for that role, oh man, that's going to be an exciting story to follow even in the future years that are to come for Mada's career. Next, we have to talk about nephh, the IGL of Bilibili Gaming. Insane numbers. And I've talked about this so much. The 29 kills, 26 assists, right? The double-double, triple-double, whatever you want to call it in Valorant or basketball terms in Valorant. He has that scoreline versus EDG on that bind. Very, very impressive. Obviously, that's kind of the biggest thing that stood out. But then I went back, watched some of the other matches, looking at his stats. 0.55 APR overall, not as a primary controller, is very impressive. But you know what's even crazier? You isolate it by the agents he's played. It's actually higher when he plays his main agent, KO. It's 0.65 assists per round as KO. You know how hard that is in today's meta? That's insanely hard. The timings have to be so good. The flashes have to be just absolutely clean. And he's doing that. I didn't even imagine it would be this high. Like, I was going to talk it up if it was like 0.45. But 0.65 assists per round as KO every time he plays KO is crazy. And this is important because KO's always been theoretically very strong, right? He's the one guy that can consistently shut down your ability to use your skills. He's the one guy that can consistently shut down your attempt at a play, whether it's, the entry onto the site, whether it's the set play, the execute, whether it's the retake, right? That burst, he's just going to deny it. And a lot of teams are looking into the burst right now. A lot of the double duelist plays coming out. And if he's able to find that timing against other teams as well that he hasn't played yet globally, like if he's able to put up those numbers, the same timings, the same reads when he's playing KO, I think he can prove that it's a skill issue for other people, that KO really is perhaps one of the more reliable initiators you should be picking up in today's meta. So I'm very excited to see what he can do because you watch him play and you see why his numbers are so high. On top of that, he's a pretty solid IGL as well. So very excited to see because I've got big hopes for Bilibili coming in to this Champions, and nephh is going to be a core part of that. Now we're entering our top 3, and this is where, it kind of gets into maybe more obvious territory, but first we're going to talk about jawgemo, and I have him titled the best of Yoru/Waylay/Neon. Currently playing all 3 of those agents, and I think starting to try to make a name for himself as truly the best of at least 1, if not maybe 2 of those agents, and I would argue that those 3 are the current best duelists. Yoru and Neon, everybody agrees. I'm still very big on the Waylay. I just don't think it's been explored enough. But jawgemo kind of plays all 3. And I think they all offer very similar things in that they are very good for space creation, but they still have the burst, and it's still good for a fragging duelist, a fragging entry as well. So jawgemo really able to take use of that. But the biggest thing for jawgemo is just he creates so much space. He commands so much attention. And that's something that you should be watching out for. Not everyone's going to have jawgemo in their top 10 list. Jawgemo isn't going to be the highest rated, the highest kills every single time. But you think back to Bangkok, even if he's not always putting up the craziest numbers, also when push comes to shove, he's the one that turns things around. He's the one that gets that clutch. And this is what I was talking about when I mentioned HYUNMIN and seeing a little bit of jawgemo in him. Like, he'll play a little bit to the system if you need. Like, he'll do what you need him to do. He'll be the absolute best tool in the tool shed for your team. But when things fall apart, he'll turn into whatever it is that's needed to put everything back together. And so I think jawgemo, once again, big stage. He's a big stage player. He's coming in. Of course, he's already lifted the Champions Trophy before as well. And so I'm very excited to see what he can do, especially because G2 kind of coming in with a little bit of a refreshed look, because now they have Leaf coming back. Leaf just returns for the last couple of matches of Stage 2 playoffs. Make sure that he's a part of that three-peat here with G2. Of course, before that, Babybay absolutely holding his own, if not maybe even carrying a little bit in some of those games. But it's so great to see. And the reason I think we should all keep an eye on Leaf is if he's able to look this good, coming back, not having played the game much, right? Just simply following along mentally, right? Watching scrims, talking to the team, things like that. How good is he going to get once he's back in the lab, grinding away? I'm a little scared. I think Leaf might unlock a whole nother level coming into this Champions Paris. Of course, expanding his agent pool to deadlock as well, so making sure that he's kind of 1-to-1, that they don't have to do any sort of crazy shifting from, between Leaf, Babybay back to Leaf, things like that. Of course, Abyss is coming back, so does his Chamber come back, right? One of the only teams that could really, really dominate with that agent on that map. I think there's a good chance Leaf is going to unlock a whole nother level coming into this tournament, and I'm here for it. I am so excited to see what this guy will do on the biggest stage of this year. So Leaf, it's a bit more of that story, right? He's coming back after a medical break, but he looks better than we all thought he would after such a break. I think we were all willing to give him a little bit of margin to warm up onto the stage, but he was right back in there. So what does that mean for Champions now that you're going to be consistently practicing and playing and scrimming with the team? No one knows, but we're about to find out. And last but not least, the Paris final boss, as he calls himself today, Alfajer for Fnatic. Listen, you're gonna put this, you're gonna theme your entire social media presence as the Paris final boss. All right, you've got my attention. Whether you deliver or not, that's up to you. But if we know anything about Alfajer, when he says he's gonna deliver, when he's actually mad and he's like, "No, I gotta win," he wins. He wins. He does it. He makes it happen. So I'm prone to believe that he will. Obviously, the stats don't look great in Stage 2. Not terrible. Alfajer is always very, very talented. Another one of those players where he's rarely ever going to look bad, mechanically speaking. But, he wasn't just at the top dominating. He was getting shut down here and there and things like that. So the stats don't really back it up, but just given past patterns, given what he's doing on his social media page, I got to imagine that Alfajer is right now just going at it in training, grinding away to make sure that he marches all the way to that trophy. He's always been one of the most standout players whenever you get to the international stage. He's always been the guy that's getting Fnatic all the way to the end, right? He was the guy that was turning things around when they needed him most at lock-in 2 years ago. Even most recently at Toronto, he was the guy that was able to always get them just over that edge. Everyone else was playing well as well. I'm not saying that everyone else was, kind of floundering around, but he's the guy that's standing there saying, we're doing this, right? He's leading by example. And I got to imagine that we're going to see that happen again. And, if you're a fan of Fnatic like me, then you probably like to believe that they're cleaning things up. They know where their errors were in Stage 2. They know their map pool is weak. So surely that's something they've been working on. So what does that look like with the new map pool going into Champions Paris? It's been a little bit since we've seen Fnatic. So Alfajer, is he truly the final boss of Paris? We'll find out in just a couple days' time. Last but not least, here's my actual final top 15 that I'm submitting to the Plat Chat list as well in terms of the best players going into Champions Paris. I'm not going to go through this too much just because, again, I just think there's so many other players that are left out of here as well. Like, there's some of the players that I would say that I listed in just the top 10 players to watch that deserve to be here in the top 15 as well. But just a couple things for you to chew on as you're looking at this list. Mostly it is based on the performance that we've seen, but I gave a little bit of like a plus minus couple ranks based on how I think they'll do against the international competition. So a little bit of prediction here, because without that, I mean, right now it's so packed. And so, for instance, Nats, I think he's going to... Do I really think he was number 2 in terms of overall performance? I don't actually. I don't actually, just because of how those games went. But do I think he's always going to show up on the international stage, especially now that you have Trexx, who has a little bit more experience as well, and the team's been together for a bit longer? I think so. I think Jonah P is going to be the actual standout player, continue to be the standout player. In my opinion, he was one of the more standout players in Stage 2. I think he'll continue that, right? He used to be the absolute assist master. Didn't mean he couldn't frag, but assists were his thing. Now he's fragging as well. He's focusing on that as well. So, that's where I'm putting that. Let's see. What else needs a little bit of an explanation? Ethan is there. To me, it was actually between Ethan and nephh in rank 15, but I think Ethan's numbers look really good as well, again, as a primary initiator. And I think, he's been looking more and more kind of in tune with the team and where they're at. And I would be very excited to see what he's able to do with NRG. So that's why Ethan is up there. Also, just because I think, again, specialized KO players, I think they're going to be kind of a shining spot at Champions 2025. But yeah. Honestly, I would say you should look at this in groups of 7. The rankings can all change among that. So this was one of the toughest tournaments. Actually, not even one of. It just outright was the toughest. I think everyone will agree with that. There's tons of names that are left out here. Does not mean that I don't. If you were in our stream when we did this, initially I picked out, what was it, 40-something players. So there's a lot of players that deserve a shout. There's a lot of players that absolutely deserve a spot in the top 15, but you can only have 15. So that's it for now. Let me know which player you are most excited to watch at Champions Paris down in the comments below. And of course, as always, if you enjoyed the video, but you haven't done so yet, click on that like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we'll also have our team tier list and pick'ems coming up soon. That's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. If Chobra wins, Aspas is washed. If Aspas wins, Aspas is the greatest player of all time. All right? You ready? Oh, but Aspas does not care, because Aspas is just too... Oh, no. Oh, no. Chobra, calm down. Chobra, calm down. Chobra, chill. Chill, my guy. Okay. I like that. Okay, bouncing between the pillars. The laser waits for it, times it perfectly. Times it perfectly. This is a journey. It doesn't have the momentum. No, he has the momentum, because he's the greatest of all time. Where'd he go? Oh. He's good. Lasers ain't got nothing on. Oh, he's too good. He's actually too good. He's actually the greatest of all time. You can't even argue against it. He's actually the GOAT. He is actually the... Oh.